We are live on. Greetings, everybody. I'm Love Coach Scott Catamas, and it is a beautiful, sacred Sunday morning. It's August 29th, 2021, and I want to welcome all of you watching. Certainly want to welcome those of you who are watching. Heather is, she was on Street Talk, and she is a transformational impact artist, Heather Meglasson, and she cultivates conversations with shadow that realign people to their truth and to their power. Insights entrusted to Heather are transmuted artistic art put onto canvas and performance dance journeys. She does experiential healing events, and she published a book coming out in 2022 called Dear Shadow. And learning to work with our shadow side is so incredibly important in life. So welcome, Heather.
Thank you, Scott.
I'm going to remove my spotlight because I want to put the focus on the others. And this is Nadine Gary. And Nadine is putting together a really, really important event that we're going to hear all about. Welcome, Nadine. And reading a little bit about Nadine, she is a very vibrant, happy, taboo-free woman who has been passionately involved in the emancipation of women for the past 20 years, thanks to the sensual meditation teachings that she received at the Raelian University. We're going to hear a little bit more about the Raelian University too, so that's going to be interesting. It's interesting, I'm noticing on Facebook, I'm a little distracted because for some reason on Facebook, I'm showing up as opposed to you guys. And I'm not quite sure why that is. So I'm going to try something different. I'm going to go to gallery view. And my dear friend Florence is with us. Florence is really who kind of made all this happen. She's a longtime friend. I think we met each other, Florence, about 25 years ago. Maybe you were 12 back then.
At the Whole Life Expo.
At the Whole Life Expo. How perfect, a perfect place for us to meet. Florence is a rapid transformational therapy and hypnotherapy student, and she's a human and women's rights advocate and activist. She's a Go Topless activist. We're going to be hearing all about gotopless.org. She's also a Raelian spiritual guide and a happiness facilitator through the practices of compassion, empathy, and universal love. So amazing. Three beautiful souls. And so I am going to lead a very brief, short meditation. And then I really want us to drop in. And I want to hear from each of you, your thoughts about, and I know we could talk all day and you've got limited time because you've got your big event this afternoon, but your thoughts on how we can remove the barriers of shame, the projections of shame, to really drop in to honoring our bodies, honoring each other in ways where we take delight in our sexuality and in our natural thing, and that nudity does not automatically equate sexuality. That's an important part. So these are some of the things we're going to be talking about, and then all about how to dance with our shadow, one of my favorite topics. So, all right. So I want to invite everybody watching, unless you're operating a motor vehicle, to close your eyes and just start with the breath. And as we breathe in and out, breathing at your own pace, really taking a moment to appreciate breath. Breath is life. Our human experience begins with our first breath, and it ends with our last breath. We're living in a time where we're appreciating breath even more. Those people who struggle or even die from COVID, it's because they can't breathe. So it's important for us to honor our breath, honor our life. As we hear from these three amazing souls today, let's use this as an opportunity to let them inspire us, perhaps educate us as to how we can embrace life even more fully. And as we continue to breathe and as you listen to my words, I invite you to open yourself up to receive the medicine, the wisdom that these three women are going to be bringing to us today. As divine emanations of the one eternal beloved, they each have a gift for you, maybe several gifts. So let's breathe and open ourselves to receive the gifts of wisdom from Heather, Nadine, and Florence. Removing any blocks, any barriers, any thoughts or belief systems or judgments that might stop us. Let's just let them all go, releasing those monkey minds, those thoughts, those judgments. We let it all go and receive. So all imagine that life, that God, life, universe itself is going to be speaking to us directly through Heather and Nadine and Florence. Our eyes coming back into the room and looking at these beautiful souls. All right. I am going to put the spotlight on each person, and I'm going to start with Nadine, who is the founder of topless.org. And Nadine, tell us about what you're doing this afternoon and your inspiration for it.
All right. Well, good morning, everybody, and thank you for the introduction and the beautiful meditation, Scott. Thank you for having us. Yes, so today is an important day because we're going to have a Go Topless Summit online. And the purpose of this organization, which was born in 2007, is to claim topless equality for men and women. In 2021, men have the right to go topless in public. Yes. But women don't have that right. And so we have been fighting for this right since 2007. Through the courts, we have organized protests all over the country, all over the world, really. And we also do educational seminars like the one tonight. And as Scott was saying, it's really important to do this educational part because it seems that the world is not ready for this. When we started to Go Topless in 2007, let me tell you a little bit about how it started. So I am a Raelian priest, female priest, and my spiritual guide, Rael, saw a newspaper article in 2007 about this woman, Phoenix Philly in New York City, who went topless in the street. And she was arrested, although it's legal to be topless in New York. So she sued the city of New York, and of course she won. So it was all over the newspapers, and my spiritual leader noticed it. And he said to me, he said, you know, we really should do something about it. We should go for, you know, equal topless rights everywhere, not only in New York, but everywhere. And at the same time, he said, so I thought, well, that's going to be pretty easy because it's a constitutional right, right? To equal gender equality is constitutional. So adding topless gender equality should be no problem. And he said, Nadine, I think it's going to take a little longer than you think. And inside of my mind, I thought, no, it shouldn't be, you know, it should be just a few years. And so we started with a protest, and then one of us got arrested in Chicago, and we went through the courts for 4 years. And at the end of the court case, we realized that they didn't declare, yes, it's okay to go topless because it's a constitutional right. Instead of that, they said, no, you are violating people's sensibilities. And in this society, we have to protect the sensibilities of the public. So therefore, women cannot go topless because at this moment, it's too sensitive a subject. I just couldn't believe it. So that is in the United States. All around the world, it seems to be the same problem. In Berlin, would you believe in Berlin, one of the most open-minded city in the world, you know, about nudity, a woman was thrown out of a water park because she went topless just back in June. So we are noticing that the world there's a lot of work to be done. So this is what we're going to do tonight. Scott is going to be one of our guests, where we're going to be educating the public on how to embrace a topless world, where, you know, where the men are respectful and the women are comfortable with their bodies. And it's not a small objective to reach, let me tell you.
Beautiful. Thank you so much, Nadine. I'm going to add our beloved Florence. Florence, how do you kind of come into all of this, and what are some of your thoughts and feelings about it?
So thank you again, Scott, and hi, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here. I'm also a Raelian priest. So just to give you a little bit of background in what this philosophy is, the Raelian philosophy brings about a third explanation of the origin of life here on this planet, because it's saying that we have all been created by an intelligent civilization a long time ago. And so we are saying there is no supernatural God. We are not coming from evolution, but we are coming from beautiful, loving human beings like us, as it says in the Bible. And they created us. They created nature. They created the mating rituals. They created all the animals, and they created this vessel, this beautiful body that we all are living our life into. And I just want to let you imagine. Let's imagine that each and every one of us is a creator. We have the technology to create another human being. How would we create this human being? Would we create this human being that is linked with shackles? Or would we want to create this human being feeling free and having pleasure through using and feeling pleasure through our bodies? And this is exactly what our philosophy is all about. And so if we understand that we could have been created scientifically with artists and scientists to enjoy your body, then we also understand that it's natural that we can take pleasure from our bodies, and that nudity is also natural. So we kind of remove the shame and the taboo of our human constitution, right? What I would like to add also is this little guys. So this is a nipple. And in our event, Go Topless event, when we go on the street and we protest for gender equality, it's not so much the aspect of for women to show the entirety of our breast, the boobs, but most likely this part of the breast. So I just want to show you, this is a man's nipple, and this is a woman's nipple. How can we make a difference? They are the same. So a man's nipple, that's the difference. It's legal. And a woman's nipple, it's criminal. It's criminalized. And this is what our event is all about. And the enlightenment in this world that we are all equal. And it's not because as a woman, I have a little bit more fat around my breast that this nipple can be criminalized. And so in 2021, I think it's time that we free the body by freeing the mind, and vice versa. We free the mind by freeing the body.
It's just beautiful, absolutely beautiful. I, it's as you present it that way, it certainly does demonstrate how crazy the whole thing is. And so I found myself thinking, like, well, what is the difference between a woman's nipple and a man's nipple? And of course, the primary difference is that a woman lactates. And although biologically men can lactate, we can lactate. I've always thought that would be pretty cool. But so then I was thinking, okay, well, women lactate, and they give nourishment. And oh my gosh, that we're decriminalizing, the difference being that the woman's nipple is associated with giving nourishment, giving, the most beautiful nourishment imaginable to a baby, right? Which probably is on a primal level why we're also screwed up about it, because we all have these memories of, nursing from our mother, which was really wonderful and nurturing and awesome. And so booby, my friends that have little kids, I mean, we've all seen little kids that go, booby, booby, because they're still nursing, or they're still relating to booby for nourishment. And then we get older, it's like, oh, well, I have to disconnect, because either we're taught that it's shameful, or we have to disconnect from our mother in that way, right? And so all the shame comes in around what used to be the greatest pleasure, booby, to, oh, I can't go for booby anymore, but I still really like booby. I mean, that's all going on in my brain right now. And I'm curious how any of you, Heather, you teach all about shame. What are your thoughts about what Florence and Nadine just said? Or my
First, I want to say I'm completely in love with you, Nadine and Florence. I love your movement. I love what you've been doing and continue to do. And I got to say, I feel it intensely that there's a light at the end of this tunnel, and that we're going to be able to move forward as a civilization into having that equality and really bringing the rest of the world up to speed with the naturalness of just our the bodies we were born with and brought into the world. And what I do around shame is, shame is just one of those things that covers up the truth. We're born into this world as pure, and we don't develop any type of limiting beliefs until we've had more experience in our lives. And as a friend actually reminded me this morning, we do take some of our stuff genetically with us. So there's some of that as well. But there's such potential to clear everything, because we deep down our truth. Our truth is there, and our access to our higher powers, whatever your belief system is, we have all of that, but we work so hard to uncover the shame, uncover the limiting beliefs, uncover anything that's in the way of us standing in our truth and in our power.
Beautiful. Oh, thank you. All right, so Florence and Nadine, because I'm going to focus with you a little bit, because Heather and I get to stay longer, and I know you've got to keep going. I'd love to hear each of you share a little bit more about, as you support men and women to reduce shame and to reduce ways that they look at the nipple, or ways that they look at the body that are no longer serving them personally or serving our culture. What are some of the tools? What are some of the tips that either of you could offer? Well, we'll go to Nadine first then, and then we'll go to...
So, thank you, Florence, for this beautiful way of describing, the Go Topless scenery. So let me explain to you what happens when we do a protest. Like I've been to protest on Venice Beach, every year we have a Go Topless Day, and Go Topless Day takes place on Women's Equality Day, which is around August 26th, because this is the day when women got their right to vote in 2020 on the basis of gender equality. So we feel that our fight is the same, because topless rights, we will get this, we will win this on the terms of equal gender equality. Now, so we have these protests, and like Florence was saying, we have these little nipples. And the reason why we have these little nipples is because, for example, in Venice Beach, California, it's not legal to be topless. But if you put this on top of your nipples, you are okay. You see, it looks like a nipple, but it's not a nipple. And therefore, the police will not arrest you, which is how ridiculous society is. So that's part one. Women have to cover their nipples with nipples, with non-flesh nipples. And what happens to the gentlemen? Well, what do the gentlemen do when we pass through with our protest? They go with their phones and they take pictures and pictures. It is a true zoo. It's incredible. They go close to you. They take thousands of pictures like they have never seen a breast before. They are often disrespectful. It's like they have not been educated. And I, as you can hear my accent, I am from France. And one day I was doing the Go Topless protest. And then the next day I took a plane to go to France. And in France, people don't react. I was in the south of France where my mom lives. There were women topless on the beach and nobody reacted. It was a non-event. So what can we do to educate the American men to behave and to be natural around topless rights? And I think a topless society. And I think part of it is simply to be exposed to it. I mean, in the 1900s, the guys would be gathering at the train station to see the women lift their skirt, and then they would catch sight of their ankles. Wow. And they were so excited about it. Well, today, nobody looks at your ankles, I'm telling you. And then, the skirts got shorter, and men, started to look at that. And now it's part of the culture. So I think that to educate the men in this respect is to expose them. This is why when the courts say, oh, it's the sensibility of the people, how do you remove the sensibility? Is through exposure.
Beautiful. That's true. Thank you so much. Florence, putting the spotlight on you for a moment. What are some of the ways that you help support people to shift their consciousness, their awareness?
So as I'm right with Nadine in that, and in general in our society, it's very important. And this is where your work is really important also, Scott, because as a man, we were talking about cultural differences, and because we are based here in the United States, there is a very different view and appreciation of the human body from a man's perspective. And so this nipple, which is a woman's nipple here compared to this nipple, which is a man's nipple, this nipple is being victimized in the way men look at it and in the way men react to it. So, and because this nipple is also criminalized because it's also overly sexualized, which is okay. Sexually is beautiful and it's liberating, right? But men also can feel a lot of pleasure through their nipples, yet those nipples are not being criminalized because we don't see them as sexualized, right? So there is this double standard in society. So that's also where we also need more role model men such as yourself, Scott, that teaches men also about the removal of shame and taboo in general in our society, but also that encourage men to have a different outlook on the human body, not just as a sexual object. And again, if someone wants to be an object to role play and everything, it's beautiful. Let's not shame or blame anyone. Everything is acceptable. It's just that in this culture of America, because men are not exposed enough to the women's body, hence how they react. So teaching more men to appreciate women's body in a more spiritual way, in a more embracing women as an entire human being, rather than just sexualizing them through their breast, their nipple, or their sexual organs, right? And then the bigger pictures of course is educating society in general and the world about the removal of shame and taboo. And that's very, very important. So religion has a big role into that, because it brings a lot of conservative views. And so to teach also that religion and the conservative views of religion is also man brought and man made, right? So, and usually religion is led by conservative men. So hence why our bodies as women are still today regulated by a man's approach, right? And need of control. So this is all what we are saying, Nadine and I, is that the removal of shame and taboo, and also the liberation of the body of women through the liberation also of religion, in the sense that it's everything that we do in life, that we experience, is all about sensuality. When we go and walk barefoot in the nature, it's a sensual experience. When we eat a beautiful meal that we just prepared, it's a sensual experience. Our bodies, when we use our bodies for pleasure, or we just expose our breast, it's a sensual experience. And so why would it be okay for a man to feel that sensual pleasure, and it's criminalized in women? So there is still a lot of work to be done.
So I'd like to add to this, if it's okay, Scott?
Yes, of course.
Because Florence is bringing up an important subject, in fact, the most important subject. That is the reason why we're speaking about topless rights right now. It's the narrative. What is our society's narrative around the women's body is all coming back to religion, and what is the narrative around it. In Christianity, for example, at the beginning, it was Adam and Eve. And Eve tempted Adam with her body. And what happened? The original sin. She created the original sin. So can you imagine? Everything that has to do with our sensuality is going to be sinful. So for a woman to start to expose her body and to just even to go topless is going to be feeling uncomfortable, because she will feel sinful, automatically sinful. And the advantage of the narrative for the Raelian philosophy is that on the opposite, we were created in the image of our creators. So in other words, the extraterrestrials who created us, they have breasts like us. The female Elohim, they look exactly like us. They have a clitoris, they have breasts, they enjoy their sexuality. So when we show our breast in public, we don't feel shameful at all. We revere our bodies in the image of our creators. So I wonder what Christian women or Muslim women may feel that makes them feel uncomfortable about showing their breasts. They have sin, and we have reverence to our creators. So to change a society, I think we have to change the narrative in order to feel comfortable with ourselves. Because we were, and maybe Florence can address that, but we were speaking about the men's behavior around topless rights. But what about the women's behavior around topless rights? It's for example, in New York, it's legal to be topless, but very few women do it. And so we ask, why don't they? Well, why don't they? It's because they feel scared that maybe somebody will attack them or rape them or make them feel uncomfortable or humiliated. They just may feel uncomfortable to do it because of their, subconscious religious narrative. So I think that if we want to liberate our sexuality, we have to liberate our philosophies, our spirituality.
That is so beautifully stated. And I really, everything you both are saying is so powerful, but I really love that just shift from a shame-based narrative into an honoring narrative, and really honoring ourselves. And I agree with you. 3 of the 5 world's big religions are completely based on shame. I was raised in the Christian tradition. The majority of our viewers probably were. And my gosh, what are we worshiping? We're worshiping somebody who was tortured and crucified for our sins. That's who we're worshiping. I've always thought, instead of walking to a church and seeing Jesus hanging there in agony, I wanted to walk into a church where Jesus was in Yab Yum with Mary Magdalene, right? That's what would our world be like if that was the church we grew up in, right? Anyway, so thank you so much.
May I just add one little thing, because we were talking about how men view the human body. I also still want to give reverence to men, because the narrative of society is that we cannot legalize women's nipples because of men reaction. Yes, men are still in their primal state when they see nipples one day a year, like this group of women, because they are not exposed to it enough, right? However, that legal aspect of the narrative is also insulting men's intelligence, in that they are pushing a narrative on men that if I show my breast, men cannot hold their urges and they're going to jump on me and they're going to rape me and all that, which is not the case. Yes, they are overly taking pictures and everything, and we can, definitely move on from that, right? But it's also an insult to men's intelligence. So that's why we are inviting men to look at us, okay, for 5 minutes, and then come and really supporting us, because they are supporting their sister, their mothers, their girlfriends, the women in general, right? And so by having more men supporting us, we are also changing the narrative.
Beautiful, absolutely. Well, I want to encourage everybody to go to your website. And again, recognizing the majority of the people who watch this show are going to watch the replay. Go to gotopless.org, gotopless.org. And that's where you can learn all about really kind of going deeper into what's been talked about. And of course, today at 5 o'clock is your conference. And can people easily register by going to gotopless.org? Or is there a better place for them to go?
So yes, they can go to gotopless.org, and there is a, they can go to our Facebook page. They can go to our event page, and they can go to gotopless.org. There is an article with a link on the top, and they'll be able to get in. There is no need to register. They just go in to the Zoom from 5 to 7. And we have you and we're so glad to have you as our guest speakers. We have many others, some comedians that are going, stand-up comedians that are going to do, because we need a lot of humor to, open up the minds of the people. And we have the lady, an author who wrote Boob's Life, that is going to become an HBO Max series in the fall with Selma Hayek. So we have a lot of very interesting people. You're going to love that moment with us.
And will that, for anybody who can't join live, will the replay be available on gotopless.org?
Absolutely. Yes, everything will be recorded.
Beautiful, beautiful. Well, I'm going to go to a couple of things. She mentioned there is a Facebook page, and this is the gotopless.org Facebook page. Wow, who's that guy? So there it is. So you can see all the different people that are going to be speaking at the conference and some nice descriptions about what's going on. So I'm really looking forward to joining you. And thank you for taking this on. You know, it is important. And before you sign off, because I know you need to go, I did want to read to you a comment from one of our viewers watching on Facebook. This is from Barre, and he writes, I personally think the issue is that women are generally objectified as sexual objects versus being the nurtural beings that they truly are. He continues to write, I work in the healthcare industry, and I'm working so hard to educate men and women about these gender roles and the conditioning of what men and women are supposed to do, and how they are supposed to act. The conditioning through the Christian religion has always shamed women with the reason for sin, the Garden of Eden, just as you said. So thank you,
That's
Barb.
beautiful.
Thank you for acknowledging that. And thank you, everybody who does watch. Let's all notice. Let's just start by noticing, well, what are my judgmental thoughts? What are my shame-based thoughts? I think Heather and I will probably talk about this a little bit. It's like, okay, we have to start by noticing, when am I judging? When am I looking at a woman and my first thought is, wow, she's hot, or, oh, wow, she's fat. Or when am I looking in the mirror and my first thought is, oh my God, look at those lines. Oh my God, look at how fat I am. Like, if we can start noticing our own judgments, our own shame-based thoughts, our own, the way that we perpetuate these images, these ideas, these roles, we all recognize when we're listening to the wisdom of these women, they're antiquated and it's old paradigm. And we do want to shift from that old way of thinking, which is a very archaic, keep people down, into the beautiful Raelian way of looking at things, that, we are here to awaken. And of course, through so many of my shows, we hear that from so many different angles, that we actually are awakening right now. We're waking up to our higher consciousness, to who we truly are, and moving from shame into embracing that we are spiritual beings having a human experience in animal bodies that includes our sexuality. So,
Scott, in the back of me, there is a symbol. And this symbol may feel, people may be wondering about it, but it is directly related to pleasure. May I mention it for a moment?
Please, as long as you can stay, we want you.
Okay, so this is called the symbol of infinity, and it is a symbol of the Raelian movement, and it is also the symbol of the people who created life on Earth. It represents the triangle that points up, symbolizes infinitely large. The triangle that points down symbolizes infinitely small. So above us, of course, is the sky and the planets and the universe, but the universe may be part of a person that is we might be inside somebody else's body. And so this is infinitely large. And inside of us, there are little cells, but these little cells could be little galaxies with people inside us. You see? So infinitely small, infinitely large. And the part in the center is the swastika. Of course, the swastika is is a very peaceful symbol that the Buddhists use, the Shintoists use, and it symbolizes infinity in time. Everything is like a cycle that starts again and again. What makes me up today will make up something else tomorrow and made up something else before. Now, the reason why I'm mentioning infinity, it's because how do you feel connected to infinity? It's through your senses. It's through the pleasure of your senses. That's how you feel infinity. You know, when you walk in the forest, right away you feel good because you feel this infinity. And when you feel pleasure, when you have an orgasm, that's a way to connect with infinity. And when you take off your clothes and you're nude, you right away feel this infinity. So this is why it's so encouraging to shed our taboos, to shed our guilt, because we're going to feel so much better. We're going to be healthier beings, and not only healthier beings but more peaceful beings, because when you're connected to infinity, you're also connected to the infinity of the other people around you. So this is why it's just it's a big lift of this wonderful peace that you can feel from that.
Oh, let's just all breathe that in. That's such a beautiful expression and truth. Can you feel the wisdom and the truth of that? I had Deepak Chopra on one of my shows. He's actually been on my show several times. And he points out something really fascinating that connects to what you were just talking about. And you might not know this, so I want to share it with you. Our most ancient spiritual wisdom that goes back, that isn't recorded, are the ancient Vedic scriptures written in Sanskrit about 7,000 years ago. And God is called Brahman. And in the Vedic scriptures, there are 26 attributes or principles of Brahman that are written down 7,000 years ago. Our most modern science, of course, is quantum physics. And in quantum physics, it's now been scientifically proven what Nadine just described, that there is no blank space, but there is a unified field of ever-changing molecules that we are all a part of. And they have scientifically assigned that there are 26 known principles of the unified field. And those 26 known principles scientifically of the unified field perfectly correlate with the 26 principles of God or Brahman written 7,000 years ago. Meaning that our most ancient spiritual knowledge and our most modern science has come together and is saying the same thing. And it's saying what Nadine just said. Here's one other little interesting thing that Deepak pointed out. He said that if the average person lives to be about 90 years, we will share approximately 10,000 molecules with every other being that ever lived. So you'll have had in your life journey 10,000 Jesus molecules, Mary Magdalene molecules, Adolf Hitler molecules, name it, right? That's how interconnected we are. So, and so between Deepak Chopra and Nadine, we now understand life.
The Raelian philosophy, not me.
The Raelian philosophy. Well, you describe it and present it, both you and Florence present it so beautifully. And if people, because a lot of people who watch my shows we do a lot of UFO, galactic family stuff. I just did that on Friday night, in fact. If people want more information about the Raelian philosophy, where would you direct them? Where should they go?
So they would go to rael.org, RAEL.org.
That's easy enough to remember.
That's easy, yes. Like Israel, but without is.
Right, I'm bringing it up right now as we speak. And it is a fascinating, and we should actually do an entire show just on this. My audience would really love it. This would be a straight talk show. But there you go, extraterrestrials created all life on Earth, which I think most or many of us are beginning to come around to understanding that and believing that. And so anybody who's interested in learning more, go to rael.org.
And you know, Scott, when you're saying people are beginning to understand that, it's simply that when we speak about God, we're speaking about these extraterrestrials because they were mistaken for gods. When you're primitive, you don't understand. You don't understand about people created life on Earth scientifically. But today, you just have to remove the veil. You remove the veil from the breast, and you remove the veil from God. It's both go together, and then you're free. We're just free, you know, peaceful and free.
Well, thank you both so much for being with us. I'm looking forward to seeing you at 5 o'clock.
Yes.
Or let me know if I need to come in earlier. Make sure I have the link to come on in too. And I will see you a little bit later this afternoon. Thank you for the wonderful work you're doing and blessing us with your presence today. And Heather and I
Thank you
now get to talk
so
about
much.
how inspired we are by both of you.
And keep supporting the nipples.
Yay!
Absolutely. I'm more a see-through top and not.
Go topless, go topless, go topless. Heather, go topless.
Thank you so much.
Thank you both, ladies. See you in a little while.
Thank you.
And
Bye.
last time, just want to
Bye. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Bye, Heather.
I reminded everybody to go to gotopless.org and really learn more about what they're doing. And there's some really, really important stuff. And you can also find it on Facebook.
Wow.
All right, Heather.
Hi there. That was so inspiring. Oh my gosh.
Very cool.
Very cool. You know, I think boobs could save humanity. We just need more of them to see them all the time. Yes.
But then, you know, one of the things I was thinking about is she was talking about, I really love the analogy about how I did not know that men at a certain age would go and watch women's ankles. That particular story, I hadn't heard that before.
Mm-hmm.
And there is something about mystery. Like, you know, of course I agree with everything they say, but I was realizing, yeah, there is something that is kind of wonderful when something, we don't always see it. Then when we do see it, it has a certain mystery, a certain magic to it, a certain wonder, you know?
Did you know it took over several hundred years for the hemline of dresses to raise from totally dragging on the floor in royal families to getting all the way up to the mini? I actually took costume through the ages back in the 90s, and it's pretty amazing when you see that. So there is that concept that we get used to it. Oh, well, then maybe we want more. Okay, let's raise that hemline. And then after a while, we get used to that, and then we raise it again. Hopefully, it is not going to take us 100 years for us to get all the way to the freaking nipple.
Absolutely. I think we're getting there pretty fast. I mean, because of the shows that I do 3 a week, I'm just meeting so many people like yourself that are playing their role in changing consciousness. And I believe it's happening. And there is, you know, obviously we look at what's going on in the world with all the hurricanes, the fires, the Afghanistan, the hard stuff. But there is a fierce grace to it all. I was blessed to become friends with Ram Dass and studied with him and also co-created with him a little bit. And when he had his stroke and he wrote about it, he called it fierce grace. And he brought into our awareness that sometimes there are things that happen that are hard. Sometimes they're really fucking hard. But there is still a grace to it all. And that fierce grace is helping us to awaken, helping us to evolve, helping us to move forward. So all of that is a setup for you. I'm going to put the full spotlight on you because I would love for you to talk about kind of the fierce grace of moving through embracing and working with our shadow side.
All right, who's been talking about me? Because you really nailed it when we talked about, I talk about 3 components, and that grace component is just so beautiful the way you described it. But because in the past, when people would work with shadow, a lot of times they would have like kind of a negative feeling toward it because, you know, it might have come from some sort of trauma. And it's really difficult to see the grace when you're so hanging on to this negative emotion of this is a shadow, I need to beat it down and you know, master it and all of that. But to really instead become aware, which is what we're all seeking right now, is this awareness of self and this awareness of our relationship that we have to those different pieces that need to be unveiled. You talked about judgment, and when you mentioned judgment, I don't think anybody's ever written to the shadow of their inner judger, their inner judge. And I would love to pick that apart and play with that since that has come up. So in the work that I do with the shadow dance journey and uncovering that and being graceful about it, in the awareness component, it's finding out on a holistic level where shadow exists. Where do we see it? Where's that inner judging come from? I like to name shadows as if it isn't just one entity. Carl Jung said in about 1958 that everyone carries a shadow, and the less it is embodied in the individual's conscious life, the blacker and denser it is. At all counts, it forms an unconscious snag, thwarting our most well-meant intentions. Very fancy way of saying we're getting in the way of ourselves when we don't go and become aware of these black, dense pieces that are inside of us coming from limiting belief lies. So when we pick it apart and name the pieces, like I have some shadows, I have an unwanted shadow, I have a too much, a not enough, you know, I have the fraud shadow. I mean, a lot of these I've dealt with, but for the sake of my show, I go and revisit those so the audience can really see what is going on there. And what is going on there is the awareness piece of going, where do I feel that judge? Where do I see that judge in my life? How it's shown up either in the past or currently? What does it feel like inside of me? Does it have a movement? Does it have a sound? And just really approaching shadow from every single angle that we can conceive of to really nail it, like where it is. Because if we can shine a pure light on each piece of that puzzle, each shadow, we're just bringing that shadow up into the light, and it's no longer shadow, because shadow is meant to be, it's said to be unconscious. So as soon as it's conscious, it's no longer shadow, but we still get to deal with it, right? So that comes in the next part. It's looking at, did you want to say something before I continue into the next part? Sorry.
You're doing great. This is
awesome. So the next component is the resourcefulness that we have come up with throughout our entire life whenever the shadow of, let's say, judgment in this case has come up. And when we become aware that that has been a shadow element in our life that's been controlling us and keeping us from living our total truth and not feeling shame, we can then go, okay, I see you. Now I get to deal with you. So for me, for example, when I feel myself judging something about another person, I now know that that's something that I need to look at inside myself. I think lately for me, at least somewhat recently, there's been a comparison thing going on. I look at people I love and admire and I go, why am I not there yet? Mm-hmm. Why are they able to do this? It looks like I recognize that I'm projecting into this. It looks like it's so easy for this person over here or this person over there. And I love them, but I'm still judging that it's easy for them and it's not for me. And it's like, ooh, wait a second. So now I've recognized it and I go, okay, when I feel that way, what do I do? What have I done in the past? What am I doing now to resource myself, to give myself resourcefulness around those sensations of comparison, the sensations of judging? And I look at that and I think, well, okay, I resource you, judge, my inner judge, when I look at things that I've been successful at, that maybe not everybody else has been successful at. I look at how long it took me to get there and how it wasn't that easy and hard work that I put into it. Okay, yeah, so maybe they're doing the same thing. I look at it like, can I be loving? can I love to see them in their shining in their best. Oh yeah, I'm all about wanting to be loved. I can switch that for love. And with this knowledge and this promise, another way I resource myself is knowing that I'm going to get there. I am going to get where I perceive that they are. And then there's the third component around it, between shifting this from I'm aware of shadow and I'm going through that feeling of shadow exists, to okay, so I've resourced myself inside of the shadow, to what am I grateful for? Where's my gratitude? That's the third component. I am grateful to my inner judgment for making me aware of where I've wanted to be in comparison of like, oh, I'm judging. Why? Because I want that. Oh, I want that. And now I'm aware that I have wanted it, and that I've learned to love this person for something that I want. And I'm so grateful that I have this awareness that every time now I feel judgment, I go, ooh, what am I wanting? What are my desires? So I'm grateful to judgment for giving me awareness of my desires. So now I can actually step into that desire and desire it fully without having to go through the comparison and the judgment and the feeling shame around being judgmental. So I've brought judgment up into the light fully into my conscious mind. And I can now celebrate, which is what we're truly here on earth to do, to celebrate life and awareness and stepping into our desires and living it fully.
Wow.
That is what I do.
Boom.
Boom.
Beautiful. That's just beautiful. Gosh, there's so many things you said that I just resonate with and I love. One of the things that a big turning point in my life was about 20 years ago. I was hired to write and direct a series of videos with Marshall Rosenberg, the founder of Nonviolent Communication. And so I traveled with Marshall for 3 weeks. And he, I mean, it was like amazing traveling and staying in the same hotel room with this icon. And he really helped me to understand the nature of how judgmental we are. And that if we want to change our relationship to the judgment, we have to stop judging ourselves for judging. It's like, that's a stage, right? Like, don't judge yourself for judge, but recognize when we're judging what's underneath that. And a nice way of looking at it, and you kind of said it in your own way, I'll put it in the Marshall way, is underneath all of our judgments are our unmet needs or unmet values, right? So if you're in comparison, it's because you're longing whatever that person has. You know, you perceive that they're confident, let's say. So if you're judging yourself for not being as confident, we can pivot into the beauty of your longing for confidence, right? And that's a wonderful way to pivot. It's like when we're in judgment of self or other, underneath that, what are we longing for? And whatever it is we're longing for is usually beautiful. It's usually precious. That's what's alive inside of us. Oh, I'm longing for more confidence. So then, like you said, reassurance, you know, you give yourself that reassurance. Oh, I do have confident moments, or I will achieve that level of confidence that I'm seeking. So.
Oh, I want to add to that. So one of my mentors, Kathleen Cienfuegos, mentioned one time about 3 years ago to me when I was talking about how I had this desire for something and it wasn't met at a specific time. And she said, but isn't it beautiful that we can have a relationship with our desires? And that got me thinking that even the things that I haven't achieved yet, I still can celebrate the fact that I have a relationship to the desire to have those or be those things. And that just makes it so that the entire journey can be celebrated, because I don't have to wait until I reach some goal at the end. I get to be in celebration for being in desire during the journey. And then it just blew my mind that became a concept that entered my world. And I think of it every single day.
Beautiful. A quick aside, Kathleen's a longtime friend. She took my relationship essentials course and has attended several of my retreats back when I was doing them in San Diego. So small world.
Yeah, yeah.
So practical application for everybody,
Yes.
bringing it down. When we have shame, which is self-judgment, and a reminder, I always love the differentiation between shame and guilt. Guilt is usually when we feel bad about something we did or didn't do. I feel guilty because I don't call my mother enough. I feel guilty because I was mean to my kid or mean to my friend. So guilt is usually about something we did or did not do. Shame is when we're under the illusion that there's something fundamentally wrong with us. There's something wrong with my body. There's something wrong with my thinking. And I want to just address that for a moment because your death experience shows. And the people that have died and gone out there and come back, and the people that research that all say the same thing. The meaning of life, we're here to learn to love, starting with ourselves. Let's just take that in for a minute. We're here, the meaning of life. We all want to know the meaning of life. You don't have to go to the Himalayas. You don't have to pay Tony Robbins a lot of money. Scott and Heather are telling you the meaning of life right now. We're here to learn to love, starting with ourselves. And usually that starting with ourselves has to do with, where do I have shame about myself? Where do I have a belief that I'm not smart enough? I'm too old. I'm too fat. I'm too uneducated. I'm too poor. I'm too weak. Whatever it is. Where do we have some shame story? And then that shame story can put us into a prison. It can put us into the prison of, I can't have pleasure because I'm too fat. I can't be successful because I didn't go to college. I can't have a good relationship because my mother didn't really love me. Whatever our pain story is. Yeah.
Scott, do you think that a sense of being the only one that feels that tends to go along with those feelings?
Sometimes.
Yeah.
Sometimes.
It is something that I've actually noticed, that we have these shame feelings, but we also tend to feel very alone in those feelings. And one of the things that I always recommend for people is to, be in community where you can express those things. And then ultimately what happens is you find out you're not the only one. And I think that's 50% of the healing, is finding out that there are other people like you. Okay, so what can we do?
Right.
Yeah.
You're absolutely right. I mean, I think what I would say is it depends on age. When we're little, we absolutely think it's just us because we're in our own little egocentric bubble. And I think that's why all the anonymous organizations, Alcoholics Anonymous, Sex Addicts Anonymous, whatever they are so important because of what you're saying. When all of a sudden people who think, oh my God, there's something fundamentally wrong with me because I am an alcoholic, or I can't, I'm struggling with my addiction or my compulsion, and then getting together with other people that have a similar or the same struggle helps to really recognize, okay, it's not just me. This is an issue. This is something that is more prevalent in our world, or in my world, than I even realized.
Which of course is good, as long as the group isn't holding on to the identity, is my thought.
Sam, right there with you. Because as a coach, I do a lot of work with addiction and recovery, and it's a tricky one. I really respect, let's say, AA, Alcoholics Anonymous, but I also always bristle at the thought, once you're an alcoholic, you're always an alcoholic, because now that's a label which can then, again, if not properly managed, keep someone in the prison of, I'm an alcoholic. That's who I am for the rest of my life. Right. So it's a tricky one.
It's tricky. But again, groups in the right, facilitated in the right moving forward mindset can be extraordinarily healing, as far as we're all in this together. Let's all get better together, and let's all own our truth together, and stepping into truth rather than the label.
And there it is. I mean, talking about groups, obviously we talked about some of the really significant problems with fundamentalist Christianity, evangelical Christianity. Now, I go to Agape Church when I lived in LA. And Reverend Michael Beckwith and Agape is an amazing church. And it's very evangelical in terms of the passion and the singing and the music, but not dogmatic, right? So obviously there are churches that are very life affirming, and there are churches that are very life alienating, right?
Yeah.
And so there are probably, with any group, there are groups that become cults when they become dogmatic, and there are groups that become extremely supportive in helping us to heal and understand each other and ourselves.
Yeah, I loved hearing you use the term shadow dance, something that I actually shifted toward. I've been doing this project called the Human Phoenix Project since conceived in 2016, but I didn't actually move it forward until 2018 out of fear, which I actually talk about on my show, which is a huge thing. We'll talk about that later. But the shadow dancing was originally like this shadow hunting, because that's where I was at the time in the learning about my shadows and such. And then later, it felt wrong to me to hunt my shadows, because through the art project that I did, where I actually stand in proxy for each of the people that are my muses, and kind of work through their story in a physical way through their words and the energy that they bring into the project. And there were certain levels where I was meeting shadow and then engaging that to the next part of the story and the next part of the story, and then all the way up to the hope and the free and the being and truth. And it started to more resemble a dance, like literal dancing. And so I thought, well, it is like a dance, because if we talk about doubt, whenever you've done something huge, right, Scott, when you've been on stage or you put yourself out there and you've worked your edge, you've expanded. And a lot like other people, at least for me, I'll speak from my own experience, when I've had a moment or a night of expansion, the next day, I sometimes go back into contraction. Mm-hmm. And it's a bit like a cha-cha, 2 steps forward, 1 step back, 2 steps forward, 1 step back. You're going forward, but it's, and you're still moving. And so it really, the concept of this shadow work being like a dance was born through that. And so that's how the shadow dance concept came about. I have a brief definition on that if you want to hear it.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Oh, so shadow dancers, as I like to call it, pretty much anybody working on themselves. Shadow dancers creatively engage limiting internal conflicts with all their available resources so they can take back their power and dominate their inner narrative, which we talked about earlier.
Wow, beautiful.
Yeah.
As we talk about shadow, one thing to remember is that the earth at all times is in shadow and in light. And we are children of the earth. And when it's daytime, it's easier to see. And that's generally when we are awake doing what we do. And when it gets dark, there is a natural tendency to contract. Some people, when we're little, we fear the dark because we can't see so clearly. But we develop flashlights and ways to see our way through the dark. And it's a really important analogy for us as human beings. And the things that are in the shadow are those things that we need a flashlight or we need a light to look through. And so that flashlight might be good coaching, might be like you were talking about, good support with the right church or the right community or the right organization. We need to find ways to light the darkness within ourselves in order to see what's really going on. And we don't live in a culture that always supports that. We live in a culture that tends to support a lot of image-oriented movement And it's really important for us to learn to self-reflect. And I want to say for a minute, especially men, as a coach, it's the women that come to my workshop, that come to this class, that come to this, a Scott thing, and then they want more coaching and they want to go deeper and they want to learn and they want to look at themselves. And then they drag along their husband or their boyfriend who would probably rather get a root canal than, go into coaching or a therapeutic process or self-reflection. But here's the irony. Self-reflection is the foundation of emotional intelligence. And the really hip corporations have discovered that emotional intelligence is far more important than mental intelligence in order to be successful in life. Successful defined as having good relationships, good self-esteem, all the things that really matter are actually built on a foundation of emotional intelligence, which is built on a foundation of self-reflection, which is built on being able to look at what's in the shadow, what's in my shadow, right? So I wanted to just put that out there.
I think that people that are resistant to the introspection don't yet see what's in it for them because they're always looking for what's in it for them. I mean, if they would know that they would just be such a people magnet, a money magnet, whatever they want is on the other side of that fear of doing the introspection. But if they just go ahead and do it, they're going to erase that emotional IQ, just as you were saying. But the thing is, like, how do we bring them to at least the well and get them to look into the well? Let alone take the drink.
You're right, exactly. And I guess there has to be little short successes, and seeing the value. And honestly, what I'm about to say is a big generalization, but it usually requires one partner, usually almost always the woman, if it's a heterosexual couple, or the more feminine-based member of the couple, the more, the one who's more intuitive, introspective, looking within to guide the more masculine-based member of the couple. And so that's where we need you to inspire us, just like you and Nadine and Florence are all so inspiring today, So that's usually what I find it requires.
Yeah, so we just got to do that. I mean, the show that I'm doing right now, I actually am working toward creating a corporate version so that I can kind of sneak in under the radar a little bit and get out there to work with groups of people that are in, say, a corporate environment. And the shadow that we're going to be working on is rejected. Because who wants to be brave enough to ask for a raise? Who wants to make those $1 million sales calls? But that's the common thread that a lot of people in corporate world have in common, is this fear of being rejected.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. I love talking about the illusion of rejection.
Please.
Because what I usually am working with people that are more on a personal relationship side, although I just led a corporate retreat 2 weeks ago. But here's the thing about rejection. When we have a story, if anybody listening, in fact, Heather, although you clearly have worked this, but you can even do this in practice. Can you think of a relationship you had where you either do or did hold the idea that you were rejected? You think of a relationship where you believe?
Yes, got one.
Okay, great. So what's more accurate? That person rejected you, that story, or that person wasn't capable or willing to love you the way you wanted to be loved?
Being capable, yeah.
And that's the thing. And even in a corporate thing, that person wasn't capable or willing to buy what we were selling. That manager wasn't capable or willing to give us the raise. So what it is we want something from another person. they either aren't capable or willing to give us that. And that still is a bummer. It still sucks. So we mourn, we acknowledge it. Oh, I didn't get the raise, I didn't get the sale, I didn't get the girl or the guy. And we mourn. But it doesn't have to mean there's something fundamentally wrong with me or something fundamentally wrong with them. He's not an asshole because he said no. She's not a bitch because she said no. I'm not inferior because they said no. They weren't capable or willing to meet my request.
Right. Or as we say in the conscious communication world, they're taking care of themselves. Not personal.
All right. Well, we're almost to the completion time. Tell us about your show and how do people get more Heather?
Well, actually, you could go to myname.com. So heathermeglasson.com. There's actually a way to find out when shows are coming up, what areas they're going to be in. And the next one's actually going to come up in September 12th in Old Town, kind of west of the I-5. And the show is the Shadow Dance Journey. It's about weaving like the wounds, healing, and transcendence into a tapestry of what it means to be a human phoenix. The show has a lot of experiential components and a lot of guest speakers. If you've ever seen Vagina Monologues, or maybe even been in it, I don't know. Do guys do that one yet? I mean, equality, that's awesome. But I had about 40 different muses write letters to different shadow aspects of themselves that then I created art from. And I selected some of just the most approachable letters to be featured in the show. And I just did a show on Sunday, and out of 7 readings, 6 of the actual muses showed up to read their own letters.
Wow.
So exciting. So they get to read their letters. And then the show, basically the container for the show is me talking about my own journey with shadow as I am stepping into the truth of me being a creative, loving being as an artist and facilitator, and all the moments and epiphanies along the way. And then it interweaves all of these other stories into it and takes the audience from that awareness space into the resourcefulness space and into a space of gratitude. And the most magical component of the show event is near the end, we circle up and we actually go into each piece of the component. We say, dear fear, I see you when, I feel you when, and we just popcorn style get in there. And as a community, what happens is one person's share will remind somebody of their share, and then another person will say what's present for them, and then so on and so forth. And we start hearing what I want people to walk away from the show with is that they are not alone. We can identify with where people are seeing their shadows and feeling them and stuff. And then the second magical component is where they talk about the resources, because while I'm a Reiki master teacher and a holistic health practitioner and hypnotist and all these things, there are going to be things that I'm not going to remember and other people are going to remember because of their experiences and their expertise. And when they add in their component, we start leveling up. So we're just building and building and reminding people of their strengths and their powers and all the things they already have access to, or of times when they've actually shown up and resourced themselves through fear. And fear is actually the shadow we're working with, because fear can be identified in so many different ways, yet a lot of times the same resources used for one fear will be used for another one. So it just works. And then that gratitude portion. Sometimes people have the hardest time looking for what they would be grateful to their fears for. My most common one that I always feel gratitude for my fear for is I am so grateful to my fear for creating compassion in me for others who are going through the same thing. And that has served me well. So that's it. I mean, the whole show is basically my journey, but then people see themselves in me, and then we're all building our own journeys together and recognizing that. And it's just magical.
Absolutely look forward to seeing your show sometime. And here is her website. It's her name, Heather Meglasson. That's spelled M-A-G, Meg.
It's Meglasson. It's pronounced Meglasson. just so you know.
Meglasson. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Meglasson sounds like a good,
Good Scottish name or Irish.
yeah, yeah. Heather Meglasson. So there's her website, and I definitely want to encourage you to go there and check out all that she's doing. And I really do hope that I get a chance. I get down to Southern California periodically, 2-3 times a year.
Oh, I'm going on tour up north. I may be by you. In October, the 2nd and 3rd week of October, I'm going to be going up to the Bay Area and then into Washington, hopefully Eugene and Portland. And then I'll be up in Washington, possibly Seattle, and what's the other one? Spokane? I don't remember. But I'll be up there as soon as I can find hosts.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and I am looking for people to host a show. And that just basically means you have a space and you have people that want to come and see the show. And then we can talk about all the incidentals outside of that. But I am looking forward to bringing that on tour to other places around the world.
Beautiful. I will keep my eyes and ears open for people I know that might want to host that. I'm sure your energy is so beautiful and so much fun and wise. So thank you for weaving together wisdom with fun, with playfulness, with honesty and transparency. You're a very, very beautiful soul.
Thank you, Scott. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you, Heather.
I love what you're doing. I love the way you hold such beautiful space for these bright beings that you find that need to be out there in the world. And you really are changing lives and you are changing the world. One podcast at a time.
We all are. We all are. Well, let's play together again sometime, all right? I like that. And thank you, everybody, for watching. Again, the majority of you watching the replay, share this out. This is how we expand. And there's so much wisdom, so much shared in today's show. I really want to get this out to more people. So please share it with others. And thank you, Joyce, for already doing that. And have a beautiful day. And remember, we can make any moment, any day sacred just by seeing the divinity in all. Care, everybody. God's blessings.